a deep understanding as to what the real engines for a deeper understanding, but also deeper cooperation and a coming together, especially at a time when, you know, the other kind of partner for Europe, again speaking as European, which is the United States, is going into a much more, I would say, isolationist mode. And so we're really hoping that this can be a vector for positive change and stability. Of course, people are going to also be interested in the business aspects, and there's going to be a very practical application of what the Nexus will be doing in addition to conferences. There will be deliverables, there will be products, there will be seminars. Let me just introduce it very quickly. Basically, I hope you can see it up here. There's some small print, but it's really a forum for at the center for discussion, with a summit that will be organized once a year, and workshop sessions, panels, and tailor-made sessions for corporates, institutions, organizations. The goal here is not just to talk about business. The goal is to talk about culture, history, relationships, exchange, and business. So it's so that we can get away from the idea that we're just markets. We're much more than markets. We're also markets, but we are much more than that. There'll be, and of course Rebecca will be much better off than me to explain this, but there'll be content produced on a regular basis and research programs for specific topics which are of interest to the members of the Nexus. So please, next. And then just very quickly here, it's fine, I'll just show this one quickly. That's the one, thank you. This is our kind of mission statement. So it's a bit long, but every word is important, of course. But fundamentally, we're talking about the connectivity, the black swans, and how by bringing China and Europe together as two major players, we can really help transition into a more peaceful, a more productive exchange between these two great parts of the world. So there you go. There, as you can see, the two extremes. Okay, so that's enough for the Nexus. I will just briefly introduce the program for tonight. So we're starting with the first panel, which will be a panel discussion which is called Recreating the Silk Road, Evolution of the Sino-EU Trade, One Belt, One Road. Unfortunately, I cannot speak Chinese. I cannot say One Belt, One Road in Chinese, but I know that many people here can. But I personally think this is an extremely interesting topic. I have been working on renminbi internationalization with the Shanghai Futures Exchange, Shanghai Stock Exchange, Shanghai Free Trade Zone now for at least 3 to 4 years, both in the Middle East and throughout Europe. So I'm very much involved personally on one aspect of One Road, One Belt, which is the renminbi internationalization program with CHIPS. I don't know who's familiar with that, but I certainly am, which is the exchange, the exchange and settlement of renminbi into foreign currency as part of a long-term program to make the renminbi fully convertible. As you know, the renminbi became a reserve currency last year at the IMF, and so that is my and I'm a finance lawyer fundamentally. That's what I do. So this is something I've been working on very closely with China and other regulators and central banks in various countries. So this is something, very, very interesting discussion, and I'm sure there's many, many other aspects of it which will be discussed tonight in addition to the purely financial one, which I'm more aware of. And then the second panel will be basically a collaboration versus competition model. And I think that'll be very, very interesting as well. All my life I've been wondering, is it better to compete or to collaborate? There's all these game theory models, and I guess I really don't know the answer, so it'll be very interesting to listen to this tonight. So I think without further ado, let's start on panel 1. Let me pass to the moderator of panel 1, who's my colleague Yun Ma, and I'm sure Yun will do this, introduce everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I would like to invite the members of our panel to come up to the stage. Dr. Song, who is the director for European Study at Renmin University. Then we have Professor Chang, who is the director of Global China Institute and working as well at UCL. And Mr. LEE-MAKIYAMA. So as introduced by David, we are going to try to recreate the Silk Road tonight, the evolution of Sino trade and One Belt, One Road. And I'm going to start with Dr. Song. One Belt, One Road seems to be a very interesting concept at the moment. You're an expert in international relations, and everyone at the moment is focusing about China-EU relationship. What can you tell us about this concept of One Belt, One Road, and what are the implications? Because from a geographic standpoint, here in Europe or in the Western world, there doesn't seem to be a lot of implications, but could you tell us about your view?
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. We are talking about One Belt, One Road, but actually is some problem of the concept. First, so we know One Belt, One Road, but actually in the Chinese official discourse of this initiative is not One Belt, One Road. It's Belt and Road. One Belt, One Road is basically a Chinese thing. So we know why Chinese say One Belt, One Road, because that's in Chinese, 一带一路. But if you say in Chinese, 带路, who knows? So that, I think, is a very important thing. Actually, we talk about Belt and Road initiative. It's an initiative. Actually, it's not a whole project, not yet. So that, I think, is very important. But now it's, how say, get attention to everyone. In this sense, it's quite successful. So everyone knows and everyone talk about One Belt, One Road or Belt and Road initiative. But actually, if we look at the real operation of the Belt and Road initiative for the last almost 4 years, actually it's not such successful. Even we can see what Xi Jinping taught last month during the forum. So he gave us some statistics, some figures. Actually, the figures are not such, how to say, exciting. So we know he mentioned that for the last few years, China's trade with the country on the line, or along the line, 3 trillion. So we know what real meaning of the 3 trillion. So, but because we still not very clear, so Xi Jinping's figure is for 2 years or for 3 years. If for 2 years, it's only 40% of China's total trade. So China's trade with Asia every year, 50% of China's trade. So that means even less than China's trade with Asia. So another figure is investment, 50 billion. For the last 3 years, 50 billion, what mean? 10% of China's total investment abroad. Only 10%. Then he also mentioned 4 billion of the Silk Road Fund. Do you know how much? How many? The Silk Road Fund is 40 billion, but spent for the last 3-4 years only 4 billion, 10%. So it's there. We can see the big growth for the future. So in terms of Europe, so I think it's not China didn't pay attention to Europe. It's not such a big interest from Europe for the Belt and Road Initiative. I think that's the problem. So if we look at recent EU-China summits, then we can see Europeans gradually realize their big opportunity for Europe to involve in the Belt and Road Initiative, and there's a big market. So I think that is very important. So if we see Belt and Road, it's not one Belt and one road. It means not one. It's many. It's not only people before only talk about country along the line. Now, if you look at Xi Jinping's speech last month, he talked more about the participating country. Means it's open to everyone. It's not only 62 or 64. It's more. So why Europe not such interested in the Belt and Road Initiative? I think that's the problem for understanding of the Belt and Road Initiative. So some countries try to find where we are. Are we on the line? No. Then that's the problem. Actually, it's not a fixed line. It's open. So that I think is very important for the for understanding of the Belt and Road Initiative. So that we can see actually there are lots of chances for Europeans to involve in the Belt and Road Initiative. So we can see now there collaborative framework between China and the EU. So one, we know there's a connectivity platform. Then we also now recently the newly established we call the common fund or co-fund, Chinese and Europeans. So there are two mechanisms to do this. And also we can see there are lots of other kind of collaboration. So how China and EU and European countries to collaborate in the framework of Belt and Road Initiative. So we can see the bilateral cooperation. Bilateral cooperation is probably not such attractive. So because now China and EU has had quite good economic relations. So investment and trade. But another very important thing is how to have a kind of multilateral cooperation. All we see EU and China collaborate in the third market. That's very important. So there also we can see how to have the mutual complementary. So we know China is a kind of overcapacity. So like the infrastructure project. So Western Europe may not need that, but we can work together in the third market. We have the capacity to the production. You have the skill. You have the technology. You have the skill of management. Why not we can work together? We know recently a very interesting information is that lots of people talk about China and Pakistan. We know recently UK will, the British company will put big money to that. So that I think is a very good chance for China and Europe to work together in this framework. It's a Chinese initiative. It's a global project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Song. It's a very interesting insight on, especially with the numbers that you're providing regarding the funds for the infrastructure, only 10% of them being invested right now. But before the European Union could benefit from all these trade that we can have with China, I'd like to ask Professor Chang about precisely the transcultural aspect of European and China. There are some existing companies or stream of business between these two geographies. What is your analysis and what are the difficulties that are often met? Well, I guess you're all familiar with the concept of Guanxi, but there's another one that is probably more interesting to tap on, which is the reciprocity concept.
Okay. It's a lot of questions. So I suppose I can answer one by one here. Firstly, you're talking about transculture. Transculturality, actually in France, here, there's a new Sino-EU forum, yeah. So they actually have done more than 20 years of very concrete work. They also work with Beijing University, Peking University, before the Chinese famous sociologist and anthropologist Xiangqun was there. In 2005, they initialized the Beijing Forum. The Beijing Forum is more than 10 years now. And all the topic they are talking about, because it is Peking University and European and South Korea and Peking Higher Education Commission, they are talking about how can we get in-depth understanding the culture, and then we can engage our business. So that is very important, the work they have been doing. And what we are here, as we call Global China Institute. So we have two aims. Our academic aim is for comparative study of China. So we put China as a comparator to compare with other countries, regions, for different topics, One Belt, One Road, for example. And also, our social mission is to participate in building and governance of a global society. So this means we need to have a better understanding of the society as a whole, global society, instead of a partial. So, and then culture, so this is like from the very macro point, talking about culture. And then we having the speakers over there talking about the whole global trends after Donald Trump elected event happened. So when China started in late 1970s, started social reform and economic reform, we're talking about global modernization, yeah. And then in late 1980s, there's a new term come up. It's called globalization, because globalization have a lot of limitations. And then after 20 years, globalization also have a lot of limitations. Scholars, thinkers looking for a new term or new tool of the sorts can help us understanding the whole society. So the transculturality is this term has been picked up from marginal status and try to more, promote this term into a mainstream concept. So transculturality is transcultural collaboration, transcultural communication, transcultural practice. So, and then there's the question, what is transculture? So, the very simple thing in Chinese, we say, in the Qing dynasty, yeah, that's more than nearly 200 years ago. There's a Western and Chinese cultural combined thing. So in Chinese term, we would say 中西合璧. So that's Chinese and the Western combined combination. What the beauty of that? So And then we still, transculture is to say, we appreciate your culture, you appreciate my culture. And then we, different cultures, we can coexistence, and we can also blend it together, make something different. And so it is not just simply coexistence, and also produce something very, like products different. So, and this is something, if I have to stop here because your questions cover so many different things. I'm saying the word, the trends of the thoughts, transcultural is one of the new thoughts, will be gradually, I think, become a mainstream discourse. So the reasons I'm very grateful for the organizer of these events, because they start talking about thoughts, yeah, culture. And we are not come here to say business. We come here to say how can we have again deeper understanding of the people and culture and the world. Then now we're talking about Belt and the Road. Belt and the Road, what is that? It's very concrete. So I'm going to come to the concrete question about Guanxi. Everybody talking about Guanxi. If you ask LSE business, management department, what they will say 20 years ago, the hot topic is what is the Japanese model. And then machine-shaped world, the book published, and then they discovered the J firm, Japanese firm. So that kind of different from hierarchical organization. They have a lot of overlappings. And all these overlappings look very, very not effective, but actually their business did really well. So that is different from conventional management model. And now everybody in the West management field, they ask for what is the Chinese model. I mean, Chinese management model is different from a China model, but they are overlapping. What is the key words here is Guanxi. And what is Guanxi special? Guanxi, if you translate it, it's just the relationships. And then there's the typology. You have 100 relationships. How can we grab it? Yeah. So our studies shows we say reciprocity. As you mentioned, reciprocity is a word everybody knows. You treat me well, I treat you well. Yeah. Courtesy request reciprocity. But reciprocity is like a courtesy, politeness, and ritual. And so this meaning, when we talk about Confucian, Confucian, Professor Sun is also director of Confucian Institute. So the key words is Li, yeah. And this Li, what is the meaning of this Li? Okay, so this Li is not only based on our study. We have morality, we have emotional attachment, emotional feelings, human feelings, and have a rational calculation. All these figures you gave is rational thing. And then we have spiritual beliefs. So these 4 different elements is make up a Li. And then relationships, there's 4 different kinds, like instrumental. We do business with you, and everything we say is instrumental. And for example, we come to this house because we share same interests, and then we build up a relationship. That is the instrumental one. But when we get on well, deeper understanding, and then this kind of relationship can change to it's expressive relationships. And then if our business is broken down, so that's the negative relationship. If our business brought up into other way, we tend to give more than receive. That is the generous relations. So if we're looking about Guanxi, you need to say what are the inside different kinds of Guanxi, typology of Guanxi, and then so what is the reason the Guanxi is not static, it's dynamic, will change, and then all these reasons, morality, emotional, and instrumental, and spiritual beliefs, all these elements, it is make change. And then say, okay, what is key of guanxi? Guanxi is making place. So if you're talking guanxi, just guanxi. And then how you make it. Yeah. Making guanxi is a process of a social creativity. So you can have, you go to Belt and Road, go to different countries. And then why we have difficulties here, what I get is because of some Westerners say, okay, you are new rich, you have money, you are too aggressive. And what this means, morally, they're looking down this new rich. And aggressive is feeling, because I don't like the way how you approach me, why should I follow you? Yeah. And so, any cases, so we're looking for a real concrete case by employing this model of reciprocity. So we can see what are the real problems there. So I suppose I take too much time now. I can come up with this question later. I still have 5 minutes. Okay, very generous panel. Okay, so we're talking about Belt and Road. Belt and Road is the roads network. So the roads network, that means we are human beings, a global society, yeah, and how we can build up this platform. Okay, so that is a China model. What kind of China model? In the early 1980s, we are talking about a cultural building platform, and then business playing roles on that. It's called 文化搭台经济倡系. Yeah, so this is the way how Chinese invite all the foreign investment and the businessmen doing business in China. After nearly 40 years, and this kind of a model is gradually expanded into the larger scope, that's global society. And it is the same way, it's cultural building a stage, yeah, and then we do business. But when this One Belt, One Road, it was initialized in 2013, and it became a document in 1915. So 2015, 2013. 4 years, 2 years, whatever years you're counting. So the way how Chinese, we need to understand their mind, what the way how they're thinking, how they're doing things. Yeah. So this, well, they have an idea, and this idea really is a great idea. And how can you approach people to accept, to understand the idea and accept the things and work together? Yeah. But now, this One Belt, One Road is everywhere. Yeah. But culturally, 2 days ago, I had a meeting with the Minister Chancellor of Cultural section of Chinese Embassy in London. Because we have, in Global China Institute, we have 1 year events, it's called the Global China Dialogue. So we prepare the 4th Global China Dialogue and see what is the main thing we can cover. And what we identified, the weakness of studying this issue is how culture can take place into it. And how can we identify different cases? So what is a successful model? What is a failed model? And we analyze that and to see how this cultural element can be there. So this is the one we are going to. Our Global China Dialogue is taking place every first week in December at British Academy. The themes, this year's theme is One Belt, One Road, transcultural collaboration for shared goals. And this topic actually was 3 years ago. We have a 5 years plan. We didn't make the topic because it is a fashionable topic, and the document shows that previously we just gradually, step by step, building our interests. So, and coincidentally, we are sitting here, and I'd like to invite you to go to London to participate in our events. So these events, One Belt, One Road, will be focused based on culture and the civilization comparative studies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chang, for this very passionate presentation and analysis of the cultural, transcultural relationships. We'd like to now turn to Mr. LEE-MAKIYAMA, and given your background as a former diplomat and economist, what is your view nowadays, like, given the current context with, first of all, Brexit, now in the United States with the election of President Trump, which direction do you think EU-China relationship is going to go? Do you think there will be some active defense of globalization on that standpoint? What would be your take?
May I have one of those microphones, please? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It will spare my voice a little bit. First of all, thank you so much to the organizers, the Nexus, for inviting me all the way from Brussels. And it's actually nice to be in a civilized city for once. And so I really appreciate that. And I'll just start by talking briefly about why trade is so important in particular. Not just for the United States, but also EU and China. And it is very, very simple. It's a question about underlying fundamental economics. About a quarter of the Chinese economy, all quarter of economic activities in China actually comes from export. And the fact that China is an export-dependent country is something that a lot of people know. And sometimes this is used as a criticism against China. And I think it's very often very unfair. Because if you look at a country, for example, like France, actually quarter of the French economy also comes from export. So if you think actually China exports too much, France exports way too much. And so in a sense, I would like to think of Europe and China as codependent on the open global market. Basically, if the Chinese economy needs to grow, and as well as the French and the European economy needs to grow, we depend on mutual openness, not only in the United States and China and Europe, but also even in, for example, on the Eurasian continent, where there's substantial amount of growth, and there are several pockets of economic growth that is happening all over the world. And so, with that, well, Professor Song also talked about overcapacities. China is not the only economy that has overcapacities. If you look at the European economy, there's plenty of overcapacities in manufacturing and services. We have never really adjusted from the crisis. And in short, whether you're looking at the European paradigm or the Chinese paradigm, if your own economy doesn't grow, basically you depend on growth overseas. And the fact that actually, for example, China and the emerging market is growing faster than Europe does, it's not really a problem. Here, President Trump is fundamentally wrong. There isn't, actually it's not only here, it's on a lot of items, but this is particularly one of the items I know very well, which is international trade, where I'm actually qualified to say that actually President Trump and his administration is fundamentally wrong. There's no problem if other economies growing faster than you, as long as you have access to that growth. And frankly speaking, we've heard about infrastructure integration of work. We also heard about culture interpersonal integration, which also leads to more business opportunities. But basically, international trade is governed by rules, which means that you need market regulatory integration. Basically, you need two systems to work together. Whether you're talking about technical standards or you're talking about fiscal policies, these things need to work. And I recall one of my best friends, who's actually here in the room today, one of the first time he met, and I explained what I do in terms of international trade and what trade diplomacy is about. And he told me, Hosuk, people in government spend so much energy and innovation to stop business from happening. And he was fundamentally right. We have, over the course of the last 4 decades, we have innovated a lot of barriers in order to make sure that business does not happen across borders. And this is the reason why trade agreements, I think, are important. Whether you're talking about TPP or RCEP in Asia, or you're talking about the future trade relationship between EU and China. Basically, what trade agreements are, they remove regulatory as well as fiscal barriers between two economies that have been artificially created by governments. And this is the reason why only governments can do these trade agreements. Business-to-business relationship, interpersonal relationship, and infrastructure project can happen thanks to money and more social interaction. But in terms of government barriers, only government can remove them. And this is the reason why I think if you look at the two very trade-dependent economies, which is EU and China, I think we are bound to go towards that route, that we will be talking about the trade negotiation at some point. One of the reasons, as I said, is because of the export dependency, but also if you look at EU and China, these are the two of the biggest economies in the world. There are not that many else places to go. Let's, for example, start with looking at Europe. Europe has just failed its trade negotiation with the United States. There are so many differences, and these two economies are really not used to compromising. So basically, after 4 years of negotiation, and I think 15 rounds of trade negotiations involving several hundred government officials, these negotiations have come to a halt. So far, so good. But the problem for Europe is that since it is the biggest economic bloc in the world, there is no other civilization that could actually make a difference in the GDP. Europe has made a free trade agreement with Korea, for example. That contributed 0.08% of GDP. And yeah, it's basically in the error margin of GDP estimate. It is an important agreement, and Korea is a very important economy per se, but it is not going to provide 1% of GDP. Basically, you need to have a free trade agreement with one of the top 10 economies in the world. Preferably, we should seek another planet to do a free trade agreement with, because it covers so much of the world's economy. But in short of that, basically, China, United States, Japan, and India, and maybe Mercosur, which is the Latin American countries in South America put together. These are the only free trade agreements that can actually provide tangible economic growth and jobs to Europe. If you look at China, on the other hand, there is constant fear of China as a trading partner, of course, in the United States. So United States is actually China's #1 trading partner, but I don't think that will happen for a number of reasons that I think are obvious. Which means that if China is looking to upgrade its economy, bring in more intelligent investments, new business concepts, and also transform its services economy, which is necessary to provide 20 million new jobs every year, there's basically only one partner that he could seek to, which is basically the EU. The other negotiations that China is involved in, for example, RCEP, which is with the ASEAN countries and India, and also Japan and Korea and Australia and New Zealand, doesn't necessarily provide enough liberalization. It's just too big area with too many different economies. Vietnam, Laos, Singapore, as well as New Zealand, Australia, and China, and arch rivals India and Japan. These are extremely complex equations, and when you have so many sensitivities, they usually don't lead to major liberalization. Now, in order for EU-China negotiations to actually really start, there are certain things that we need to bear in mind. Number one is that we have tried to negotiate an investment treaty, which has proven to be different. Investment treaties are different than trade agreements because they only cover investment, foreign direct investment. And the key problem there has been that basically Europe has very little to offer compared to China. China has far more markets closed for investments, which means that it's a very one-sided negotiation. And at the same time, we also need to bear in mind that the protectionism in both economies is rampant. There is a lot of skepticism, lack of trust, if you like, and there's also a number of people, especially in the southern Europe, who are very concerned that maybe they are too much of a direct competitor to China. And you also feel these sentiments even in countries like France and Germany. And another issue is political, which is about the market economy status, which is symbolically extremely important for the Chinese leadership, and I think also for the Chinese people. And I mean, to be honest, anyone who's visited China, and if anyone drops you on the middle of a major tier 1 city, if you tell me that you're not in a market economy, I ask you to check your glasses because there's something wrong with your eyesight. But this has nothing to do with actual fundamental economics. This is about political recognition that China is a market economy. And this is something that Chinese leadership, obviously, and the trade negotiation wants to have on the table before we even talk about the trade negotiations. And at the same time, as well, I think there are a lot of concerns from the European side that in terms of negotiating a free trade deal that will remove all the tariffs, basically Europe goes in for all or nothing approach. We need liberalization on everything. Does China really know what it wants? But fundamentally, I'm one of those people who tend to think that the room to maneuver for politicians are quite small. If the business and the consumers want something, it is bound to happen. With the way that the world is now going, there is no obvious leadership for the international trading system. At some point, the economics will force these two economies to start talking to each other. It may not be a full-fledged trade agreement at first, but at some point we need to have that conversation. Because without opening up to each other's growth for high-level upgraded products coming out of China, exemplified by tech industry as well as increasing number of actually even services and advanced consumer goods and even luxury items coming out of China nowadays, compared to the huge redundancy we have, for example, in the car industry and the infrastructure equipment and the skill we have in engineering. At some point, it will become obvious for the political leadership that we need to open up to each other. Otherwise, they will be responsible for their citizens to say, where is my job? Where is my growth? People don't draw these parallels to trade and job directly, but it will happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. LEE-MAKIYAMA. Well, we understand that EU and China still have a few challenges to face before they come to an agreement. I would like to perhaps, I don't know if we have a bit of time to open questions to the floor. So is there any questions?
I have a question. And it's for Mr. Lee. Basically, you talked about the trade, but you didn't actually talk about the road and belt. Could you just link the two briefly? Do you see a direct correlation between what China is trying to do with road and belt and potentially opening up an avenue for a potentially partial trade negotiation linked to that initiative? Or do you see it very separate?
I would say both are approaches for China to open up the world markets. If the world markets are not open, let's find an approach to build either the regulatory infrastructure or an actual infrastructure of concrete to make that happen. But they are two very different policy initiatives as such. Because, as we said, free trade agreements is about regulations. It's not about business, it's actually about government. And I tend to believe that my friend I described in the beginning, that people in government invest a lot of innovation and resources into stuff from business from happening. And that is essentially true, that if you can't have trade agreements happening, maybe for, not only because of political orientation of the two governments, but also partly because there's no real counterpart to negotiate with. If you look at the NCA region, there is no one single entity to talk to. And even if you would talk, there's actually, even if you have the products to sell, and actually natural resources to actually that you can pull out of these countries, basically there's no efficient way to actually make that happen. So the objective, in a sense, you can say that is about to lower the transaction cost, lower the cost of doing business. In one case of trade agreements, it's about tariffs. With Europe, we have adequate infrastructure, and therefore it makes sense. On the other hand, when it comes to OBOR or Belt and Road, basically what we are talking about is more fundamental, rudimental, on-the-ground market integration. And I think one thing that we need to be very careful about now is that there are very few infrastructural projects going on at the moment. There are people who are complaining that OBOR is basically a vanity project. Well, isn't it great that someone can actually afford to do it and will do it in the form of international cooperation? More of that. And the only infrastructure investment that I can think of right now that the governments are initiating is about building walls and not building roads. So I think China needs actually a little bit of credit for that.
Sorry, just one more question for Professor Song, and then I'll stop monopolizing. But you spoke about trillions and trillions, right? Trillions is a lot of money. All of those trillions, when I look at trade, and just to go to Lee's point, when China is the biggest importer in the world, right, of commodities and of product, in many products, most of that is in dollars. Is that a problem for China? Is the fact that most of what China imports is priced and paid in dollars and not in US dollars and not in renminbi, is that a problem? And is that something that the Road and Belt Initiative could potentially solve?
I don't think that's a problem. So for China, because I think China is very clearly to claim that the current international order, especially the international economic system, is good for China. China would not like to challenge the current existing international order. So that also means China would like to have the renminbi internationalization, but not to challenge the US dollar. So I think that is very clear. Even a lot of people talk about AIIB. So AIIB was also regarded as a challenge to the current international economic order, but I think that's wrong. It's very interesting. It's like the Belt and Road Initiative. So from the beginning, it's very much domestic and regional orientation. Then it was gradually expanded. So to Euro-Asia and then to now global. AIIB is also, from the very beginning, so AIIB is basically a regional arrangement. So no Chinese expect that so many Europeans will join AIIB. Then AIIB was forced to be global. It's forced by Europeans, it's not by Chinese. So I think that's the basic idea. So.
May I jump in with a question as well? I tend to take the view that actually the biggest currency union in the world is not the euro, it's the dollar RMB RMB parity. It is dollar and the RMB. If someone is in the PBO, from the PBOC here is in the audience, I might actually go to jail for saying this. But fundamentally, they are in the same boat. I mean, they exist within, they have, in a sense, in a very strange way, a common strategic objective. And PBOC, the Chinese Central Bank, has in recent years modified this basket in order to take into account, for example, the euro. But the fact that the dollar-nominated trade dominates the world, the number one beneficiary is actually the United States. And the guarantor of that greenback privilege is actually China. I would say it's not a problem necessarily for China, but it might be a problem for those who see their currency depreciate against the dollar, which could in the future include the euro, and which we've seen in the recent years sometimes when there's been volatile market movements, and also other Asian currencies, but not for China.
Okay, last, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. LEE-MAKIYAMA, since you are a specialist, I think. Currently, China is doing censorship against European e-commerce sites, and it's kind of protectionism. What is needed to start a litigation at WTO?
Actually, in a circular issued by MIIT, Ministry for Industry and Information Technology in 2016, e-commerce is now the first sector of what China called value-added telecom services that has been liberalized for wholly owned foreign investors.
That's a different topic.
You said 26. You said e-commerce.
European, in Europe, not European investing in China.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
I mean, I have an e-commerce site in Europe,
yeah.
and I had to spend about 100,000 euro to get it passed through in China.
So you get an ICP license?
I get everything.
Okay. So congratulations to you. I'm not familiar with many people who actually have the time and energy.
If I want to sell my goods in Japan, it costs me 0. In China, it costs between 100,000 and 500,000 euro to get my e-commerce pass-through. And I learned that NDRC in China actually designed the system as a protectionist system.
I think it was actually Ministry of Public Safety.
I have, may tell you too.
Well, anyway, I think you may have read one of my reports on the WTO, so I'm going to go straight to the answer. Okay, I'm not going to keep people on the edge of the chair. It is true that China has a internet management system. I think is the terminology that is used, and it also requires people to apply for a license, internet content provider license, in order to actually have websites available in China, which basically binds website owners like yourself to follow Chinese rules. With all due respect, Europe does similar thing on the basis of privacy. Basically, if you want to have information and website available to Europeans, you have to abide by the fact that you follow European privacy law. I just provide that information as a just to create a little bit of a context.
Yeah.
And now, if you do this as a part of your regulations to maintain public order, so for example, in Saudi Arabia, all the websites relating to, let's say, religion, or website relating to gambling, pornography, alcohol is blocked. Is that a WTO violation?
No.
Okay. Do you want to take over? You can come up on the stage if you like. No, but basically, what the trade rule says that any country in the world is sovereign to set its own standards. China can decide that what it wants to do in terms of public order and public safety, the standards should be up here. But what it can't do is to say, domestic website should be down here, but of the foreigners, we demand them to be up here. They need to be of equal standards. There are a couple of WTO cases that has been raised, and actually, ironically, the country that was actually fined in the WTO was United States because of online gambling. It was found by the World Trade Organization that United States actually discriminates in terms of providing online gambling services. So foreigners cannot provide online gambling site in the United States, but federal government and the Indians can. And so therefore it was actually found to be discriminatory. There has been writing, and I have written, that actually Chinese internet management system could be example of such a violation that United States have done. But this was in 2010. And since then, actually, China has imposed the ICP licensing system, which basically, at least on paper, provides foreigners as well as domestic internet site owners identically. And therefore, China has actually managed to escape a WTO dispute. And so far, no one has raised a case against China. But it could have probably done so before the ICP license was introduced. But you knew the answer because you have read my report.
No, I did.
Yes, I have a question which is much less intellectual and is totally profit-minded and selfishly oriented towards business. We have access to a lot of technology in Europe, and especially in Germany and Switzerland, and we have access to a lot of private capital in Europe. And we would like to go and do business linked to this Silk Road, Belt and Road Initiative, but not be blocked by the Siemenses and the ABBs and the large companies, large conglomerates. So if I want to take my clients on the industry side and mount deals in China and Pakistan, where the Belt and Road Initiative actually goes through, how do I do this? Who do I talk to? And it's all about making money, right? I mean, that's something you like, I know that. So, you have an answer? I can give you my business card afterwards.
I have no concrete answer for this, but as my basic understanding for the Belt and Road Initiative, as I mentioned, that actually it's just start. There's still a lot of things not fully solved. So 2 months ago we had the same kind of forum in Brussels. One of my colleagues argued how to do business with the framework. Then is first find a country. It's not necessary to find Chinese. Can find any other countries. So what you like to do. Second, find a project. So why we say that it's only 10% of the Silk Road funds was spent is because it's very much project oriented. It's not a foreign aid. So not a Marshall Plans. It's economic development. So it's do business. So you need to find a project. So we know now the EU-China connectivity platform has decided 10 projects for Europeans. So that's the kind of thing to find a project. And then the third one, find money. So if you say there's lots of money in China available, but not say we'll spend all the money, then we need the money to the project. So that I think is very important. And then so you can do business. So some people even argue that with this kind of format, it's not necessary to go to the governments. You just go to the company.
So you have a list of projects? That's what I understood, right? You have a list of projects.
I think that's you find a project means you find a partner to do kind of project.
Yeah,
so then you can try to get the funding. So we also know now there's the EU-China co-funding. That's the, how to say, 500 million. So it's just recent, there's a deal. So each part puts half of the money, then there's the money. So it's basically you need to see so what kind of project, then you can get the funding. So
I have the funding and I have the technology, I don't have the projects. See, so if you have the projects, you know, I can bring part of the money and the rest. So
you need to talk with the company and then to set up a
which company?
Okay, so like final people, if you want to go to China, any commerce, chamber of commerce of any province, for example, if you're familiar with Shanghai or Jiangsu or Shenyang, wherever, so they have accommodation for you, for foreign investment for foreign people. So for example, I visited Jiangsu Chamber of Commerce. They told me UK visitors is the #1 figures come to our province looking for partners, do business things. But it is also #1 failed country. Who is the successful country? Is Germany. Say why Germany is successful, but UK is not. Because whenever UK started looking for everything, and then come to regulations, and a lot of rules and things complicated, the Chinese just got headache. But Germany, yeah, they said, well, I don't think I understand too much about the Chinese, but let's do some field work. So they go around Jiangsu, different places, and then they find people and then do some kind of a workshop and work with Chinese Chamber of Commerce. And they are going to introduce, okay, that's what you like, yeah. And for example, if after this panel session, we can have a discussing, so point out which road to go. And that's how we say making place. Making place is social creativity. Social creativity starts from people. So project, yes, you can, if you have right people, you can have right project. You have right project, you have for money. So find right people and to do things together, make chance. This is the way how you go.
I think you're actually at the right place here because you're building Guangxi with the right people. You can speak with Nexus and you can speak to Orrick. Thank you very much. I think we have overstepped a bit the second panel. Thank you very much. So the second panel is going to be about innovation, collaboration versus competition between Europe and China. And I'll let Sophie introduce the Good evening. I hope the team are not starting to be too hungry. It's already 8:45. We'll try and keep it to 40 minutes. The panel, the subject we're going to tackle is innovation. Is it all about collaboration or competition between Europe and China? And actually, as we were preparing this panel discussion, we decided with the panelists to extend that to actually research innovation in science, just because we think this reflects the buoyant area that this represents, as well as the economical stake that it represents. So the question we really face today is how are Europe and China going to deal with their policies, frameworks to encourage or not collaboration, and how are the actors today on site, if I can say so, or talk that way, managing this equation. To answer those questions, we have two panelists tonight. We have David, who is, I'll let him introduce himself, but just quickly, he's worked at the EU Commission for 15 years.
advising them on the best strategies in the technology field to develop for Europe. He recently joined Huawei in 2014 as head of public affairs, and today advises the company as to the relationship with governments. On the other end of, not the spectrum, but in a totally different position, which will bring interest to the debate, we have GARCIA-COTTE, who is CEO and co-founder of Cypheme. And Cypheme is a startup that invented an anti-counterfeit detection system based in China. So, gentlemen, from your very different standpoint, what would you say in your different positions and different roles is the reality as to the relationship between Europe and China when it comes to research, innovation and science? Competition or collaboration? David, do you want to start?
Before I just answer that question, I'd just like to briefly just say a few words about Huawei, because a lot of people don't quite understand some of the products that we actually sell in a global context. Huawei is a leading ICT solutions provider. We provide technology solutions to over 500 telecom operators around the world, whether it's SFR, Telefonica, Deutsche Telekom. That comprises 60% of our revenues. 33% of our revenues are generated from the sale of our consumer products, and then we provide a variety of technology solutions to governments and businesses alike. So last year our revenue returns were over $75 billion US dollars. We operate in 170 countries around the world. We're recognized as one of the top 50 most innovative companies in the world. And in fact, we have a very strong presence here in France. Actually, in that context, when people are talking about the relationship between the European Union and China in the fields of research, innovation and science, the actual reality on the ground is there's more and more cooperation between entities, both from the public and private sectors, and indeed from the educational research sectors, between the EU and China. And one of the reasons for this is that, of course, more and more governments are bringing out digital agenda plans. More and more governments want to ensure that they can put in place a policy framework where innovators can flourish. But the reality is, if you want to develop more innovative products and solutions and services, you must cooperate internationally. You must cooperate with the best talent where that talent lies, whether it's an individual researcher, whether it's an educational institute, whether it's a private sector company, right up to the Harvard universities and the MITs of the world. So it's actually in that context that there's already strong cooperation there. I mean, for example, you take the European Union Horizon 2020 Research, Innovation and Science Programme. That's the largest publicly funded research programme in the world. And an awful lot of Chinese companies, including Huawei in fact, are participating on this programme. I saw that the European Commissioner that was dealing with some digital agenda issues, Gunter Oettinger, had said he wants Europe to become a leader in 5G. But the reality is, the people who are going to generate the 5G innovation are going to come from all different parts of the world. So, the reality is it's now stronger levels of collaboration between the EU and China, and that's the direction it's going. I mean, China has the 13th 5-year plan that has been rolled out now, the Leap to Prosperity between 2015 and 2019, and so much of that plan is centred around the use of better ICT to promote the energy sector and the transport sector and social services, and indeed the agriculture sector. And within that plan there's a commitment to boost spending in China in the field of research and science up to 2.5%. And so there's going to be higher levels of cooperation into the future in these fields.
Thank you. Charles, from your point of view, I mean, do you, which is a different type of size and reality, of course, what do you witness, what do you live? More, is it more collaboration that you feel and you experience, or do you face challenges in terms of facing competition?
No, I think with Europe and China is definitely cooperation. And, the Chinese at every level are extremely open to the world and have a huge interest for everything European, technology, products. So it's a huge opportunity for us Europeans entrepreneurs, because we can bring our own national, I don't know, specificities, mindset, traditions, way of working, and respectively in China they can bring the huge interest they have for us. They can bring us lots of technological potential, means, very good engineers, work. So it's yeah, a huge opportunity at every level. So,
and so at a high level, what do you concretely put in place to encourage this collaboration, which I guess is not in such a structured way in a startup, but I know you fund some, as you mentioned earlier, some research programs, joint research programs. What other concrete initiatives do you put in place as a company to incentivize or to develop this collaboration in the long term?
Well, in fact, in a European context, Huawei have operations in 33 different countries, within the existing 28 EU member states plus 5 more. So the European scenario, we would employ now well in excess of 10,000 people in Europe. We're going to increase our employment levels in Europe by a minimum of 1,000 people per year for the next 5 years. We'd employ circa 1,800 researchers, scientists, and innovators. So we have a variety of different research centres in Europe. We have a research centre in Stockholm dealing with some wireless technology issues, in Munich with antenna issues, in Milan microwave issues. And we have extensive research operations here in France and in Paris dealing with radio parts issues. So I mean, there's a real practical case whereby Huawei is working with European research organisations, collaborating with them on the Horizon 2020 programme. So Huawei have put in some really strong structures to facilitate this process. In fact, I'm delighted to see my dear friend Leo Sohn here, because he worked for Huawei and put a lot of those processes in place in Europe for over a number of years. So Huawei also has a number of other operations that support business cooperation. We have an early stage investment division where we're open to talk to new companies, micro companies, where we are willing to take an investment stake in companies. And that would, the companies and the areas where we will invest in will reflect the areas where we are researching in, and that of course reflects the products and solutions that we ultimately want to deliver and bring into the marketplace. So it probably is a very good example of EU-China cooperation in practice. And the Europeans are great researchers in the field of software activities in any case. So I would see even more and more research capabilities from Huawei being set up in Europe. And this is going to intensify because we're on the verge of 5G technology coming down the line. That's going to be the next generation. That's going to be the next the framework for the mobile communications industry, and standards, international standards for 5G will be set before March 2018. It's going to start rolling out in 2020, and that's going to ensure that data, information, videos, etc. can be transmitted on networks at a speed 100 times faster than 4G, which is going to be incredibly transformative.
So you're saying that concretely recruitment, partnerships, funding programs are concrete ways that you, Huawei, generates that collaboration or incentivize that collaboration. From your position, which is to deal with governments as well, is there anything that you have been able to achieve or that you have been able to develop, that you're working on, that can frame maybe as far as policies or influence the policies, or as far as developing policies that can frame more this collaboration? Or interesting thoughts that you have about that, if it's not done yet?
The bottom line is that the ICT sector and the ICT industry is hardcore economics. The day of the communications minister in a government being the sole owner and having the sole responsibility for these issues is over. I mean, the ICT sector is now completely transforming the energy sector, the transport sector, the industry sector, finance sector. So we, of course, are advocating for all governments around the world, including in Europe, to put in place more and more funding for ICT. And that's not just our view. It's the view of many international organisations, whether it's the European Commission, the OECD, the International Monetary Fund. I mean, if countries can increase spending in a strategic way, in supporting the ICT sector by up to 20%, a country can ensure that the GDP of that country can increase by up to 1%. So, you know, there's a lot of statistics that are borne out that supporting the ICT sector is now supporting hardcore economic development. I could defer to other economists, but I'm not one myself, but it's clear that the digital economy is growing at 3 times the pace of the global economy, so there's a lot of serious opportunity here.
Cool, thank you. So Charles, because your startup was originally set up in the US, in the Silicon Valley, and then you moved to China, I guess you've witnessed and you've experienced that collaborative approach. So do you want to tell us what you found in China that you maybe didn't find in Valley, or what suggested that move?
Well, I had a great time in the US, a short great time in the US, but what I discovered when working there is that we should stop thinking that the US is the center of the world, and that actually when you start looking around you can find lots of different opportunities in different countries, and that maybe these opportunities are more fit to your own company than the only one model, Silicon Valley model. For example, what I found in China, I didn't find in the US is, well, first, our companies or market is clearly Chinese, or more specifically, is clearly focused on trade between Europe, or let's say our main market is mainly international between Europe and China.
Do you want to say maybe a few words about your market and what you do? Because I just very briefly mentioned it, and just so everybody's clear.
Okay, so we created an anti-counterfeit solution. So basically, it allows anyone to say, take a product in any shop anywhere. You scan it, and within seconds you know if the product is genuine or not.
And
So,
That's thanks, if I understand well, it's thanks to a little label that you apply on each of those products.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've invented the technology, well, it's not, you've invented the technology as in the app that manages to read that label, and you've invented that specific label,
Yes,
which is stuck on products which go from cosmetics, right, to medicine or IT products.
Yes,
and
yes.
others,
Yeah, exactly.
And food, maybe, yeah?
Oh, yeah, anything. And so, yeah, if you live in the US, if you're a US investor or whatever, in Europe, it's the same. No? For when you think counterfeit, you're thinking, oh wait, that's a great way to get cheap Chanel in a shop somewhere. It's not a concern for you if you're a French or no, if you're a US investor. But if you live in China, which we decided to do, if you live in China, you know that counterfeiting is, am I going to get poisoned by this bottle of water or not? It's the first question you ask yourself before you buy a product. So you have a completely different relationship with the problem. And because lots of quality products, or at least in the mind of the Chinese consumer, quality products come from Europe. So we create, our company creates a bridge between European products and Chinese consumer, which is the biggest consumer market in the world right now. So in our DNA there is this bridge, this desire to create a bridge between Europe and China. So it doesn't make any sense to be in the US, and actually it would be quite harmful for us if we had stuck to this US-based perspective. It's you need everyday experience life to come up with not just the idea, because actually the idea straight came from our life in China, because we started living in China, moved to the US, and then came back to China. Or the idea, the concept for the startup came from our life in China, but everyday modification, when you want to fine-tune the product, you need to be there. So there is that. And also, what makes Shenzhen nowadays, which is where we live, an amazing environment for startups, is that, you know, in Silicon Valley, everything is outrageously expensive. If you're a startup, like, I don't know, I was living, you know, when you're a startup, you run after clients, you don't have any money at the start, so you're starving a little bit, and not just a little bit, and I mean, what's the point of paying like 1,200 euro per month for rent? I mean, I'm not paying that money for rent. I need food. I need so if you know when for half this money you can live like a king in China, and you live in Shenzhen, and you live. I mean, the quality of life is extremely good. And so what's the point of living in the Silicon Valley? And plus the engineers there, of course, have to pay the same rent as you do. So of course the salaries are extremely high for them to just to live there. But the qualification is not any better. I mean, you can have as good engineering both in France and in China for a much lower price. And Shenzhen is an amazing place if you want to create anything in Shenzhen. You can find let's say one morning you wake up and you say, oh, I have a great idea for some very special model of smart glasses. Well, Shenzhen, you knock on the door and you can have them made overnight. You can have a prototype made overnight for a kind of cheap price. So, well, you like this prototype, you can run with it, start the production very fast. You don't like it, you can make another prototype. It's amazing. It's like you live in a cyberpunk type of city where you can buy microchips by the meter in the marketplace. Again, this is fantastic. This is an incredible environment for coming up with completely crazy ideas. If I can, I have a funny anecdote. If I still have the time. Or, I met a guy in Shenzhen, a German guy. There is plenty of hacker space for hardware in Shenzhen. You can find everywhere this. And the guy was in a hacker place like this, and he decided to combine a camera with a motion detection system. Well, just two systems which are available anywhere for cheap. Okay, take a camera, put it on a motion detection sensor, and he created the device which you throw in the air, and once it runs past the end of its course, take a 360-degree picture, and then you get your camera back, and you have a picture like that. This is fantastic. It's a completely crazy idea, and just by combining different pieces of hardware, you can't do this in the Silicon Valley as easily. In China, you can all the components you can buy on the market like this, and come up with this kind of crazy combination. So if you dare to get past stereotypes we have about Silicon Valley is the best place in the world, you see that actually it's you find some fantastic environment in China. So that's definitely the reason why I stayed. I decided to move back.
Thank you. David, there's still this perception around, even though, oh, I got 10 minutes. Oh, okay. There's still a perception around that sometimes Chinese technology, science, or research is not as good or doesn't meet the same standards as other European. I mean, you live it, again, on a day-to-day basis, and yet we all know that it's proven that it's not necessarily right. So, I mean, what is your experience, and what is your opinion on that perception?
Oh no, I mean, the Chinese government is investing more and more money in the field of research activity. More and more ICT innovation is coming out from Chinese companies. Huawei, as a company ourselves, we've invested over $27 billion in the last 3 years alone. We invest 15% of our global revenues last year, 14% the year before, into carrying out research and basic scientific activity. As a company, we're recognized now as one of the top 50 most innovative companies in the world. But there's more and more investment in the field of ICT activity in China, and that's not just on the government side. There's more and more investment now on the private side. And in fact, Shenzhen as a city is really building up a very strong ecosystem to support ICT companies, micro, new, small, medium, and large. And I would just say to you in passing about Shenzhen, if people want to invest in the area of ICT or invest in these companies, Shenzhen is not that far away. I mean, there's flights every day out of Charles de Gaulle to Hong Kong, and when you go to Hong Kong International Airport, you get a boat across to Shenzhen that takes all of 25 minutes. So, I mean, that's how near Shenzhen is. It's one flight away, and one small boat trip across the bay.
But hasn't that perception ever come into the way of collaboration with Europe or with a specific country? that perception of like, or maybe it's not as good technology, or maybe things are not as followed through, you know, that kind of general perception has never...
Oh no, there's more and more companies are basing research operations in China across all key vertical sectors. You also have to remember, there's 8 million graduates coming out of Chinese universities a year. I mean, there's a serious talent here on serious educational engineering capacities here. So there's a huge pool of really highly talented people coming out. That's 40 million really qualified graduates just in the last 5 years alone.
Thank you. So Charles, we heard that it was a fantastic place for you and for your business. There must have been some challenges, or still some challenges for you in terms of getting the best collaborations with the local ecosystem. What have those challenges been for you?
Well, I think the main challenge for Western companies to come in China is that if you want to enter into the Chinese ecosystem, you need a bit of Chinese DNA inside.
Which you have?
Which we definitely have, or I'm not from Xinjiang, or.
Your brother studied in China, right? That's what you said to me.
Yeah.
Your brother co-founder.
Yeah, my brother studied in China, but among the first member of our company, there is we are 2 French people, 2 Chinese. So we definitely have this metaphorical Chinese DNA in our company, and so yeah, it's. To get into China, you need to understand it, to live there, and you discover that there is lots of different uses. Like if you come in China with your Google and Facebook, you will see that different tools are used there, different network, different method of networking. So you. To really get into using WeChat for everyday communication.
So you're suggesting a cultural switch kind of thing?
Yeah.
So there needs to be like a cultural switch or adaptation?
Yeah.
What would you say about that, David?
Well, really, the message to businesses in Europe that want to invest in China, like, you must link in with Chinese partners. You just won't be able to do it on your own because you need Chinese on board to deal with local government issues, tax and regulatory issues. That's an absolute prerequisite for any company starting out in China.
Yeah, exactly this. You need a foot in China to really get it.
And one thing that I found interesting when talking to you both is how you both said, building on the theme of like a cultural switch, how you both said that your lifestyle over there as a foreigner, yet not feeling as foreigner, you were mentioning, was part of your integration and the collaboration mindset that both your companies want to experience. So do you want to elaborate on your life in China, maybe, and how you live there, and how that's part of, leading and experiencing and going, incentivizing or developing a collaborative approach?
Well, Shenzhen as a city is a very international city, so there's a lot of foreigners in the city, and there's a fair few foreigners, maybe 400 now, working on campus, the Huawei headquarters in Shenzhen, and there's areas that accommodate for the Western needs. There's a whole variety of Western restaurants in the area I live in, whether it's German restaurants, Spanish, French, American restaurants. So it's easy to integrate into Shenzhen life. You can enjoy a Chinese way of life for part of your working week, and you can enjoy Western way of life for part of it as well. So it's a very exciting city. But going back to the late 1980s, there's only 30,000 people living here. So the powers that be in the province of Guangdong, where Shenzhen is based, and the Chinese government had plenty of time to manage the development of Shenzhen. It developed from being a small fishing village, 30,000 people, now to a city where I'm sure there must be up to around 18 million at least living in Shenzhen at the moment. So we have a lot of opportunity to plan infrastructural development. Hospitals are, the standards of hospitals are very high. That are based in Shenzhen. My wife herself had a baby girl there 17 months ago in Shenzhen, so the infrastructure is there on the educational health side, support foreigners living in Shenzhen. That's important.
Yes, my perception is, I mean, as someone which gets into it more recently, maybe, I think the big shift is like, traditionally maybe the way foreigners lived in China was like living in a little bubble where you have your French restaurant nearby, you have your, you try to keep the bakery. Foreigners traditionally try to recreate a little Western bubble where they live, and they don't get too far away from it. And there is a shift recently, as far as we are starting to get out of our bubble and trying to live the Chinese way and see that actually Chinese lifestyle is pretty pleasant, and also is have been changing recently, so which helps us getting out of our bubble. But you start living maybe kind of the Chinese way. You start, and so you don't live. It shifts your perspective on life. Sometimes you get into the real local life, and you don't long for going back home as fast as possible, because you actually find out that life in China is pretty enjoyable, and have different everyday challenges which are very interesting, and actually everyday answers to to some Western challenges too. So it creates this encounter between this real encounter between Western and Chinese way of life, which is only possible when you start exploring. It creates a wealth of new ideas, of new opportunities. So it's a great moment, I think, to come and live in China. Right now is the perfect moment.
And I think it links back to what was said on the first panel, which is that opportunities happen when it's not just about where's the business, and that's a legitimate question, but when it's about building relationships and discovering culture and opening up yourself. I think we're running out of time, right? So I think we're open to questions, but I think if we had to summarize from us here, I think we'd say that it's really all about collaboration, because innovation, technology, and science knows no geographical boundaries. And that line was suggested to me by David. I thought it was really great to finish off. So open to questions now.
So,
Hello. Your company Cypheme has Chinese and foreign customers. What is the ratio of foreign, non-Chinese brand customers among your customers?
For now, most of our customers are Western brands which export in China. So that would be our stereotypical customer, like Western customer trying to sell their product in China, and so trying to find a way to prove to their Chinese customer that their product is genuine and is not a copy, which happens like nearly instantly when you start to create products in China. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. More questions? Okay, there's one over there.
Yeah, the question for Charles. Your product is to identify whether the product on your network is genuine or not. But we know that the Chinese engineers or the innovation capability right now is very dynamic. How you prevent your products to be copied or to be even made by the Chinese better than yours? Because we know they are super hardworking and ambitious, and sometimes I would go back to China and feel really afraid looking at the young faces on the street. So they are really grabbing every single opportunity to make their own success. So where your bravery and how it come from?
Okay, so well, to put it shortly, that's the whole point of Cypheme is like all the existing anti-counterfeit technologies have it's an arms race between someone, the anti-counterfeiter, making something very hard to make, and the counterfeiter trying to remake that thing which is hard to make. So it's true in China now you have full factories which are devoted in making fake holograms or fake RFID chip. And, so our idea was to cut the Gordian knots and by making something which is actually not at all hard to make. It's our label use ordinary materials. What we do is we identify the product by the material itself. We let's say we scan the fingerprint of the product. So of the label of the product, really. So finger two fingers are everywhere, easy to find, but each one is unique and impossible to duplicate. So that's what we do. We don't make anything. We don't use anything special. We don't use, but we know how to recognize it. So even if I wanted to make a copy of my own product, I could not do it because each product, thanks to our technology, each product is unique.
I also had a question on intellectual property. How concerned are you about the issue? Because it is often said that that's the #1 stumbling block in companies cooperating between Europe and China. I haven't heard you say much about that specific issue, or maybe David, because it still seems to me as if this is not solved yet.
Well, I can say to you that a couple of years ago, the Chinese government brought in a new patent law, and they introduced a new patent court, and that has helped the process tremendously in terms of dealing with two key issues. One, ensuring that your patents can be registered quickly, and secondly, ensuring that your patents can be enforced expeditiously. And that's a problem globally around the world for people who are dealing with patents. And Huawei, as a company, we hold a lot of patents. In fact, we hold over 62,000 patents globally. So there has been quite a lot of advances on the IP front in a Chinese context.
Well, I think in the end, intellectual property is the law of the jungle anyway. even in countries where you have intellectual property laws, you can only enforce them if you have the money to put the guy into court. But if you're a small startup, you can't when you start. So your best protection against IP problems, always, both in Western countries and in China, is just to have the best product, the best service. What's important is not the idea in itself; it's the work you put behind it, the execution, the quality of your engineers, your ability to be agile and adapt to the different problems which arises. And anyway, there is, when it comes to technology, it's always possible to get around the patents. So if you want to stay important, just stop wasting your time being afraid of being copied, because it's going to happen anyway. Except if you're, I don't know, Apple trying to squish with your ability to squish the competition, and didn't actually work in the end for slide to unlock. So anyway, you're going to be copied if you're doing good. So if you want to stay ahead of the competition, you have to work for it, and to outside of the court, you have to really make something good.
I have a question for David. There has been a trend going on in companies in the US and in Europe that companies like Huawei and other high-tech oriented companies are setting up their VC arm to invest new tech startups to sustain their technology advantages. So my question is, as a Chinese, I know investing as such is not in Huawei's DNA, and as compared to other Chinese companies, Huawei's overseas development model is quite different, and that it hasn't been very active in overseas investment, especially strategic investment. So I guess my question is, do you think Huawei would go down that road as other European or US companies are doing to set up a VC or investment vehicle to sustain the advantage?
We do have a division, an early stage investment division, but the general policy of the company is, yes, that we will invest in companies up to a level of around 20%, but you're correct in terms that Huawei isn't out there buying up companies from one end of the week to the next. But there have been a few exceptions there as well in a European context. So the position now for Huawei is that we are committed to invest in new companies, and we do want to build further collaborations. But we're not actually in the business of buying companies. That's the general direction we're moving in.
But the investment division you're talking about is not set up as venture capital or private equity. It's not set up as a how can I say that? As a combined with strategic and financial benefits, right?
What I'm saying is that, if you're going to invest up to 20% in a company, that is going to be it can be a very strong financial investment, nonetheless. I mean, there's all a variety of different mechanisms people can turn when it comes to how one finances companies. But when Huawei makes an investment in companies up to 20%, it's still a financial investment into companies, and it's a substantial one.
So I think maybe there's a last question, but we have time for one last question. Oh, okay.
I'll be very quick. Thank you. My name is Leah. I work as a public affairs consultant in Paris.
And I'm fairly surprised that the government relationship between China and France hasn't been too much we didn't talk about it too much tonight. I understand we're in a business, how to say, in the business fair, though we have a new president, and we saw that the president of China has reacted quite well to the election of Emmanuel Macron, saying that he wants to bring up to the stage forward, to the level forward, the level up, the partnership between China and France. Do you think that for the up, at least because the government will be in office, the actual government will be in office for at least 5 years, this will have positive impact on the relationship between China and France, and also for trade? Do you welcome it as a positive signal, as a business?
It is, yeah, it's certainly my view that that's the direction the two countries want to go, yeah. That there's going to be an intensification of political contact between the new French president and the Chinese leadership. And when there is higher levels of positive political interaction at that level, then there are broader political and economic benefits. So it's the relationship has certainly started on a very strong and positive footing, and I think it's going to be a strong one in the years ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I think it's time for drinks now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you enjoy the food and drinks tonight, please return your personal into the box at the information desk. Thank you.